I ran into my ex-girlfriend after 2 years. Back then, I was just a nobody, a low-level employee with no status. But now, I've become a CEO of a major company. Ironically, her new boyfriend is one of my department heads. Though he's never met me in person, he only interacts with my COO. When we met again at a restaurant, the two of them humiliated me publicly, assuming I was still the same bro guy they once looked down on. But the outcome they got, let's just say, it was exactly what they deserved. Watch how I turned the tables and made them regret every word. Thank you for always being with us. Every view and every share from you means the world. If our stories have touched you, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Who knows, the next story might just have a piece of you in it. Why not hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell right now, so you won't miss any upcoming stories where secrets, betrayal, and redemption unfold layer by layer. What about you? What would you do in that situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story, where the truth always finds its way out. 2 years ago, I was the kind of guy you'd pass by without a second glance. Plain button-up shirts, worn-out sneakers, and a coffee-stained laptop bag slung over one shoulder. I worked as a junior tech analyst at a mid-sized logistics company in Chicago, just another cog in the corporate machine. My cubicle was small, my paycheck even smaller, and my dreams? They felt miles away. But I had Madison, or at least I thought I did. We met during college. She was witty, stunning, ambitious, the kind of girl who could walk into a room and make everyone look twice. I was the nerd in the back row, more comfortable debugging code than navigating social circles. Somehow, though, I made her laugh. Somehow, I mattered to her. For a while, we dated for 4 years, moved in together, talked about marriage. But deep down, I always sensed it, the way she winced when I said I couldn't afford to go on vacation again. How her eyes lingered a little longer on guys with tailored suits and keys to something German in their pockets. I ignored it. I told myself love was stronger than lifestyle. Until one Thursday night, she walked in with that look. The one you know means it's over before a word is spoken. "I can't do this anymore," she said, standing in the doorway of our one-bedroom apartment, arms folded. "You're a good guy, but I need more. I want more." I just stood there. I couldn't even form a sentence. She packed her things that night, took the coffee maker, left behind a note that ended with, "You'll always be special to me, but I can't build a future on hope and ramen noodles." It crushed me. I stopped going out, stopped eating properly. I'd stare at the ceiling for hours wondering what the hell went wrong and whether she was right. Maybe I was just average, a placeholder until something better came along. But one night, after pouring my 4th glass of cheap whiskey, I stared at my reflection in the TV screen and whispered something that changed everything. This is not how my story ends. I quit my job the next week. Everyone thought I'd lost it. My parents begged me to reconsider. My friends, well, the few that were still around, warned me I was making a mistake. But I've been building something on the side. A little app idea I'd been tinkering with since college. A platform to help small businesses automate logistics and supply chains. Boring stuff, but essential. I'd been too scared to pursue it. Too scared to fail. Now, I had nothing left to lose. I burned through my savings setting up the LLC. Moved into a shared basement with 2 other startup guys. Worked 16-hour days. Learned how to pitch to investors. Got rejected 23 times in a row. Ate instant noodles like they were gourmet meals. There were nights I doubted everything. Days when I couldn't afford gas, let alone groceries. But something inside me wouldn't let go. Madison's words kept echoing in my head. I want more. Fine, I'd give her more. Not for her. For me. 18 months later, after a pitch at a tech accelerator in Austin, I got a call that changed everything. A venture capitalist liked the concept, liked the numbers even more. He wired us a $2.5 million seed investment within a week. Suddenly, everything shifted. We hired staff, brought on advisors, moved into a real office with windows and working air conditioning. I brought in a chief operating officer, Richard, to run the day-to-day while I focused on scaling the tech and forging new partnerships. But I made one deliberate decision. I stayed out of the spotlight. No press photos. No LinkedIn title updates. No CO plastered everywhere. Why? Because I wanted to build, not flex. I wanted the product to speak first. And maybe deep down, I wasn't done hiding from the past just yet. And so, 2 years after she walked out that door, I wasn't the guy on the floor eating ramen anymore. I was the founder of a company worth 8 figures. I had clients in 6 states and over 120 employees working under a name I created from scratch. But nothing could prepare me for the moment when our new department head in the Chicago office was introduced to Richard. His name was Tyler Moore. I recognized the photo immediately. He was the guy from Madison's Instagram stories all those months ago, the guy she left me for. He didn't know who I was. He'd ever seen my face. All his onboarding and communication went through Richard and our regional HR. But I remembered him, and something told me fate wasn't done writing this story just yet. It's funny how success doesn't always feel like success. You expect fireworks, applause, champagne popping kind of nights. But most days, it feels like spreadsheets at 2 a.m., silent emails with 6-figure consequences, and the quiet, heavy weight of leading people who depend on you. Still, I loved it. I wasn't rich, not yet, but I was doing it. My company, Arcline Logistics, had just opened our 3rd office. We'd signed contracts with several mid-sized retailers and were piloting our automation tools in 3 warehouses across Illinois and Ohio. Then Richard, my COO, sent me a file titled Chicago Expansion, Final Hires. I was reviewing the onboarding list over lunch when I froze. Tyler Moore, department head. No way. I clicked the profile. Graduated from Northwestern. MBA from Michigan. Recent experience in supply chain consulting. Very polished resume. Very clean headshot. But I knew that face. Even if it had been a while. I still remembered it from the photos. Madison's birthday. Her skiing trip. Their New Year's Eve selfie with the caption, "No better way to start the year than with my rock red heart." Yep, that was him. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen like it had just cursed me out. It was ironic, really. Of all the qualified applicants in the state, the one guy my team had hired without realizing the backstory was the man my ex left me for. I could have said something. Could have told Richard to rescind the offer. But I didn't. Why? Because I was curious. I want to know how far this rabbit hole went. And more than that, I wanted to see it unfold organically. Over the next few weeks, Tyler started work at our Chicago office. Richard kept me updated, strictly business. Smart guy, he said during one of our Monday syncs. Bit cocky but sharp. He's been pushing for more visibility with clients. Might be management material in 6 months. I just nodded. He ever ask about me? I said, sipping my coffee. Richard raised an eyebrow. You? No. I doubt he even knows you exist. You've been the Go CEO since day one. I smiled. Perfect. A few weeks later, I flew into Chicago for a quarterly strategy meeting. The regional team wanted FaceTime with Richard and, technically, with me. Normally, I'd zoom in, but something told me this trip might be worth taking in person. I wore what I always wore, old jeans, a nondescript jacket, and sneakers I could sprint through an airport with. I arrived early, stayed in a modest hotel, and kept a low profile at the office. We ran back-to-back meetings all day, and by dinner, Richard suggested we wind down at one of our clients' restaurants. Small, family-run place, but the food's amazing. Owner wants to pitch a supply contract too. Casual, nothing fancy. Sounded good to me, until I walked in. The place was cozy. Dim lights, soft jazz playing in the background, and a warm scent of garlic and herbs in the air. I was just about to take a seat at the bar when I heard a voice behind me. Hey, can we get some water here? I turned around, and there they were. Madison, sitting across from Tyler at the corner table. Her hair was longer. She looked good, polished, confident. She didn't recognize me. Why would she? The lighting was low. I had facial hair now, and I was dressed like someone who just finished fixing their garage door. Tyler barely glanced up. Table service here sucks, he muttered loud enough for me to hear. Honestly, babe, places like this are cute for people who don't have standards. We should have gone to Lombardi's downtown. Madison laughed. You're right, but it's charming in a bro kind of way. She turned to me and smiled that familiar, condescending smile. Excuse me, do you work here? Before I could say a word, Richard stepped in behind me. Sir, sorry I'm late. Had to finish up that call with a Minnesota client. Madison blinked. Tyler looked confused. I smiled and said, no problem. Shall we sit? I turned to the hostess and asked for a quiet booth. As we walked past Madison and Tyler's table, I didn't look back, but I could feel it. The rising tension, the beginning of a realization neither of them was ready for. They had no idea who I was, but soon they would. The booth Richard and I got was tucked into a quiet corner of the restaurant, close enough for me to still hear Madison's laugh, but far enough that they couldn't make out our words. I didn't mention them to Richard. Not yet. I wanted this to play out naturally. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't planned. It simply waits for the perfect moment to arrive. We ordered wine, steak, and shared updates about the Minnesota rollout. But my mind kept drifting back to the table where my ex and her boyfriend were busy indulging in themselves. Tyler's voice carried. The company I work for? It's insane, babe. Big-time clients. Global potential. Our COO's this bulldog from New York. Guy gets stuff done. But honestly, the founder? Bit of a ghost. No one's ever seen him. No LinkedIn. No photos. Probably some weird tech hermit. Madison chuckled. I bet he's just awkward. Like socially stunted. I almost choked on my drink. Richard raised an eyebrow. Something funny? I just smiled. Nah, just surprised by the wine. Didn't expect it to be this good. We kept talking. But then it happened. Tyler stood up. With a smug grin, he walked over to our table like he owned the place. Hey, Rich, didn't expect to see you here tonight. Richard turned, pleasantly surprised. Tyler, small world. This is a client of ours. Just catching up. Tyler extended his hand to me with a half-interested nod. Tyler Moore. I'm with the Chicago branch. Nice to meet you. I shook his hand. Likewise. His grip was firm. Overcompensating, like most men trying to prove they belonged in rooms they hadn't earned. Hope Rich here's not boring you too much, he smirked. He could be a bit intense, right? Richard laughed politely, but I just tilted my head. Nah, I like intense. Gets things done. Before Tyler could ask anything else, Madison called from their table. Babe, they brought dessert. He gave us a casual wave. Duty calls. Enjoy your night. And just like that, he walked back, having no idea. A few minutes later, the restaurant owner, our potential client, arrived and spotted Richard. They'd spoken on the phone before, but had never met in person. Mr. Grant, it's a pleasure, the man said, shaking Richard's hand enthusiastically. And you must be? He turned to me. Richard was already smiling. This, Richard said clearly, is Mr. Collins, founder and CEO of our client. The entire section of the restaurant seemed to pause. And just behind the owner, Madison turned. She blinked, stared. Her smile froze halfway up her cheeks. Tyler looked up too, confused. Wait, Mr. Collins? Madison's eyes flicked between me and Richard. He's your CEO? Richard, unaware of the drama, nodded proudly. Yep, the man who built it all. You've been working for him this whole time. I didn't even look at them, just nodded politely to the owner and said, thanks for having us. Heard a lot of good things about your food. He offered to bring out a complimentary bottle of wine. Tyler looked like someone had just kicked the wind out of him. And Madison? She looked like she wanted the ground to swallow her whole. They left before we finished our meal. No goodbyes, no awkward waves. But as I glanced out the window a few minutes later, I saw them standing by their car. Madison was saying something, animated, frustrated. Tyler just stood there, motionless, like he'd been punched in the gut by a ghost from his girlfriend's past. I didn't feel triumphant. Not exactly. It wasn't about beating them. It was about proving to myself that I didn't need to chase closure. Sometimes it walks into the same restaurant as you and hands you the check. Back in my hotel room that night, I poured myself a drink and watched the city lights flicker outside the window. I thought about the guy I was 2 years ago, staring at his ceiling, wondering why he wasn't enough. And now here I was, still quiet, still low profile, but powerful in a way they never expected. And the best part? Tomorrow would be even better. The next morning, the office was buzzing. Chicago's regional branch had just closed a huge deal with a national retail chain, and Richard wanted to kick off a quick all-hands meeting to congratulate the team. It was meant to be short, light, but fate had other plans. I wasn't even planning on attending. Usually, I let Richard handle these things while I stayed in the background, observing silently or catching up on reports. But that day, I felt different. Maybe it was the wine from the night before. Maybe it was Madison's stunned expression still etched in my brain. Or maybe I was ready. I showed up in the same outfit, jeans, t-shirt, scuffed sneakers. No blazer, no name tag, just me. The conference room was packed. Teams gathered around laptops, some standing, some leaning against the wall. Tyler was near the front, flashing his signature smirk and whispering something to a junior analyst. I walked in quietly and stood in the back. Richard began with the usual. Great job, team. What we achieved this quarter is nothing short of amazing. Chicago's performance is setting the benchmark. I'm proud of every one of you. Polite applause. He continued. Now, we've got someone special here today. Someone who doesn't usually like the spotlight, but I think it's time everyone knows just who's been behind all of this. I felt the room shift. Heads turned. Whispers started. Ladies and gentlemen, Richard said with a wide smile, please welcome the founder and CEO of Arcline Logistics, Mr. Ethan Collins. Silence. Then I scanned the room until they landed on me. Madison, who'd been invited as a guest that day, apparently tagging along with Tyler, was standing near the coffee table. Her mouth parted slightly. Her eyebrows lifted. Recognition hit like a train. And Tyler? He looked like someone had just unplugged his brain. Wait, him? No, that's not. You're joking, right? Richard turned to him, confused. You've been working under him for months, Tyler. Tyler looked like he wanted to melt into the carpet. But he came into the restaurant last night like a nobody. I stepped forward. Calm, casual, not smug, just centered. Funny thing about nobodies, I said, my voice cutting through the silence. Sometimes they're the ones signing your paycheck. A few people chuckled, nervous laughter. Others just stared. I didn't need to say more. I nodded to the team, shook a few hands, and turned back toward the door. But then Richard added the final nail in the coffin. Oh, before I forget, Tyler, I need to see you in my office. HR will be joining us. There's been a concern raised about professionalism and conduct, especially involving senior executives. A pin could have dropped. Tyler's jaw clenched. He didn't protest. He just followed Richard out, pale as chalk. I didn't stay to watch. I didn't need to. The room had seen everything they needed to see. Later that afternoon, Richard walked into my temporary office. It's done, he said, handing me a paper to sign. Tyler's out. Effective immediately. I signed it without blinking. We offered severance. I asked. Richard nodded. Basic package, but he won't be using us as a reference. I leaned back in my chair and looked out the window. Chicago was glowing in the late afternoon sun. Do you think he knew? I asked. Do you think he ever suspected who I was? Richard shrugged. He saw what he wanted to see. That's the problem with people like him. And her. They only look up when they think someone's worth their time. And you? You walked in looking like someone they could ignore. I smiled. Exactly. That night, my phone buzzed. A message from a number I hadn't saved, but recognized instantly. Madison. I had no idea. I was wrong about everything. Would you ever be open to talking? I stared at the screen for a while, then locked it. No reply. She'd made her choice when I was down. Now that I was up, there was no need to look back. You see, power doesn't have to shout. It doesn't need to prove anything. It just walks into a room quietly and lets the world adjust. The morning after Tyler was terminated, I sat in my hotel room with a cup of coffee and an unusual sense of stillness. No adrenaline, no thrill, just peace. I pulled open my laptop, scrolled through my inbox, and there it was, the final closure I didn't even know I wanted. Subject, termination of employment, Tyler Moore. Effective date, immediate. Reason, breach of conduct, insubordination, and inappropriate behavior toward executive leadership. The HR department had done its job with precision. The language was clean, corporate, and cold. Exactly the kind of email Tyler himself might have sent to someone he deemed beneath him. I didn't gloat. I didn't forward it to anyone. I just let it sit there like a quiet punctuation mark at the end of a very long sentence. I took the rest of the day off. No meetings, no calls, just me, walking the same old streets I used to take the train on 2 years ago when life felt so different. I passed by the coffee shop where Madison and I had our first date. Back then, I was too broke to buy anything more than a small drip and a shared muffin. And yet, she laughed the whole time, like it was the best day of her life. Or maybe she was just good at pretending. I stopped in front of the glass window and stared at the reflection. Not the guy from 2 years ago. Not the boy she left behind. Now, I was the man I had always wanted to become. Not because of the money, not even because of the company, but because I had finally stopped chasing people and started building myself. That evening, another message came in. Madison, Ethan, I can't stop thinking about the other night. I owe you an apology. I was immature, shallow, and wrong. You didn't deserve how I treated you. If you ever want to talk, maybe even meet up, just to catch up. No pressure. I just miss the person you were. And maybe who you are now. I stared at it for a while. There was a time I would have read that message 100 times. Drafted responses. Imagined scenarios. Fantasized about what closure might feel like. But now I saw it for what it was. A door I'd already walked through and locked behind me. So I typed a reply. Thanks for your message. I wish you well. And hit send. Nothing more. Nothing less. 2 weeks later, I was back at headquarters, debriefing with Richard. Everything was back to business, new hires, marketing expansions, Q3 strategy. The Tyler episode had faded like a bad dream. Richard leaned back in his chair and grinned. By the way, next time you show up in jeans and a $10 shirt, give me a heads up. People still can't stop talking about how you pulled that off. I laughed. Hey, it's not the clothes. It's the silence. He nodded. True, but still, damn, that was art. Before I left the office, I passed by our company wall of quotes, something we'd let employees contribute to over time. There, framed in gold, was one that caught my eye. Someone had anonymously added it after the Chicago incident. It read, "Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all." I smiled. Yeah, that felt about right.